Hello everyone, I'm here now to talk about some of the different genotypes we have planted in this autumn sown trial. I mentioned in the last video that a couple of the challenges we perceive is being able to stop the crop effectively so that it finishes up in time for harvest. And that will also fix some of the harvestability issues because it'll make the plant crisp up and stand up so we can get the header underneath it. And then hopefully the chickpeas themselves will be ready for market, all a fairly consistent age and size. So I'll point out a few of the different genotypes we have in this trial, but please do post comments in the comments below. We'd love to hear your questions and opinions on whether you think this system would work, what challenges you also perceive in your farming systems with this type of growth, and any other questions you might have about how we can do this trial again next year to better serve growers. So this plot does actually have two genotypes mixed in amongst it, but I'd like to point out something a bit weird and wonderful for growers. This genotype here, which is quite badly infected with Ascochyta, is called Kimberley Large. It's got what's called a unifolate leaf. This leaf type is actually genetically not too different to normal chickpea, even though it looks quite different. And the chickpeas that it produces are really, really large premium Kabuli type sent to the premium market. It's called Kimberley Large because it's the genotype that's grown exclusively by growers up in the Ord River region in the north of Western Australia. So that's why growers around here wouldn't have seen it before, but it's definitely not suitable for our region because it's too susceptible to diseases, and it is quite low yielding in this environment. Up in the Ord, it's flood irrigated every 2 weeks and treated like royalty, so it's a very different growing system up there. But we have it down here because it is quite heat tolerant. So that's why we have it in this trial. And it is also a good example of the problems that Ascochyta can cause if sown in autumn. So we had no problems at all with Ascochyta earlier on, even though we had lots of rain in February. But just now, early April, with the last couple of rain events, we've seen Ascochyta start to come in. Moving over to some of these other trial plots that we believe have a bit more promise for this type of growing environment. This one's a cross between Rapali and Genesis 876, which is a cultivar that's grown over in Western Australia. This particular plant type finishes quite quickly. Once it starts to pod, it really goes crazy. So it puts on its pods very quickly. And we're hoping that this genotype will finish quite quickly and be able to almost finish flowering without being told to stop. So it's been planted at a higher density in some places in the field, although this particular plot was planted at normal density, to try and reduce the amount of water it has and try and cause it to finish up a little bit better. But as you can see, it's covered in pods, and even though it's still flowering, the branches are quite erect. So it's more of a V-shaped plant type, even when it's in its vegetative growth. And we're hoping that this plant type will be more easily harvested if it's sprayed out while it's still green. Let's move over to this plot here to show another one of the breeding lines. This one hasn't quite gotten into its podding too much yet, but it does have some pods there deeper in the canopy. There you go, you can see them there. So this is a cross between PBA SEMA and a line called ICC 12654, which is a line that came out of India and is known to be heat and drought tolerant in the very extreme Indian growing environments. So we crossed it, hopefully trying to produce some heat tolerance, but we've found that it's not photoperiod sensitive, and it's able to produce pods under both hot and fairly mild conditions as well. And that's what we found in our preliminary trial last year. So we've got this one and its offspring in the trial to see how it goes. And we'll just turn around here and look at PBA SEMA, just so you can get your eye in for this trial. I mentioned in the previous video that some of these plots were a little bit delayed because we had so much rain in February that they were basically soaking in their pre-emergent just as they were emerging from the ground. So it did delay the growth on some of them a little bit, but this is PBA SEMA, getting into its podding phase now. There's one more set of lines that I'd like to show you over here. So these are offspring of a cross between Sonali and PBA Slasher. Neither of those cultivars are recommended for northern conditions for their lack of disease tolerance, and you can start to see Ascochyta coming into them now. But this plot, and this plot are all offspring of the same crop. they were one of the earliest types to flower and pod. So these ones were producing pods only 35 days after planting. And that's even when we had in February a lot of rain. So it basically took just over a month to start podding. And we're hoping that something like this, if we can get it to be harvested, will produce a really good yield for growers under this sort of environment. So that's it for now. I'm going to do another video in another couple of weeks so you can look at the time of sowing too and how that's performing, just to get a little bit of an idea of what time of year this needs to squeeze into. But again, if you do have questions, please post them in the comments and we'll get back to you soon. Thank you.